What's up, everybody? Hope you are doing well, and it's time to sum up everything that we learned from the Combine this last week and try to put it all together in one easy to digest package pertaining specifically to the Seahawks, because I think we all understand that there are players in this draft, players that tested at this Combine that are great, that are awesome, that we would love to have, but we're never going to have them because it doesn't make any sense for us to get those players, because there's no need for those players on this specific team, because the picks just don't fall that way. Like, I think we all understand that while it's fun to look at the Combine from a bird's eye view and really break down everything that happens, at the end of the day, if you're a Seahawks fan, you're going to want to mostly know about how what happened out there on the field in Lucas Oil affected the Seahawks. So I'm going to take all the things that I've said in the previous collection of Combine videos on this channel and try to whittle it down to what I would personally view as the most important things to take away. So let's get started with 5 offensive players who tested at this Combine and I believe did well. Some of them didn't do amazing, but I think they all did well. Put themselves on the map in a way that I think is of particular interest to the Seahawks and is now somebody that I am circling with marker many, many times over. Let's do like the 5 positions. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, center, those being the 4 positions that the Seahawks definitely need to address on some level, even if it's just a very low level. And I'm also going to throw tight end in there because of the potential of the Noah Fant trade. So basically, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and offensive lineman. So with that context, keep in mind, C.J. Stroud was awesome. Anthony Richardson was awesome. Bijan Robinson was awesome. A lot of these guys were awesome, but I'm not really going to talk about those guys because I don't know how interesting they would be to the Seahawks. I want to talk about guys that I think would be of particular interest to the Seahawks, guys who really turned me onto them one way or the other during this process, and guys who I'm probably going to be talking about more in the future because I think I'm going to want this Seattle Seahawks team to target them when the draft comes along. So let's get started with the quarterback. Again, keep everything in context. This team just gave Geno Smith a bunch of money. Yes, we might spend a top pick on a quarterback. It's possible, but it's, I think, right now very unlikely. So let's aim a little bit lower and take a look at a potential backup. I tried to find a mid to low level prospect in this draft, a quarterback who I liked, and it was tough. Once you get past the top 5, Levis, Young, Stroud, Richardson, Hooker, I didn't really like anybody I saw that much except for this guy right here, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So if the Seahawks hit the draft this April and they're looking to find a backup quarterback in the draft because they need one, they currently don't have one. Right now there is one quarterback under contract for the Seahawks. It's Geno Smith. Then I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson would be my favorite mid-round option. I don't know exactly where he's going to go in the draft. It shouldn't go that high. But of the guys beneath the Power 5, probably my favorite. Little undersized, but not terribly so. Decent size, a little bit more than I expected. Tested pretty well. Decent 40 time, good acceleration. Decently explosive, nothing insane, but okay. And I like the way he developed as a player over his career in UCLA. This is not just a question of him testing well. His hands are a pretty reasonable size as well. Little things like that are always going to help. And I could see him developing well behind a guy like a Geno Smith. So Dorian Thompson-Robinson would be the quarterback that stood out to me as a Seahawks fan from this Combine with the situation this team currently finds themselves in. Number 2, Roschon Johnson. That's right, I'm doing Bijan Robinson's backup. Roschon Johnson didn't get the accolades, didn't get the credit, didn't get the attention of a Bijan Robinson, but he has my attention. This is a power back. This is somebody who can throw his weight around a little bit. This is somebody who's going to get the tough yards. Not Bijan Robinson, who's going to get all the yards, and that's why he's going to be a superstar in this league most likely. But Roschon Johnson is going to get the tough yards, and we need somebody like that. And of the power backs in this draft, he is probably my favorite right now. So, not a lot of production in college, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's less wear and tear on him. His athleticism scores were pretty good for a guy who's bigger, to almost 220 pounds. By the time he gets to the NFL, he probably will be 220 pounds. Sub 4.640, good acceleration, and that's really kind of what you need to see there. That's better than what Chris Carson brought to the table, and what we're really looking for here in Roschon Johnson is the next Chris Carson, somebody who can go get those tough yards, somebody who can run with power to complement what K9 does. Roschon Johnson, probably another mid to late round guy. You're not going to have to spend a ton of capital on him, but I believe the value we could get out of him as a power back is very appealing. So Roschon Johnson is somebody who isn't going to be a super hot prospect, but I like what I saw from him. We're going to do the receiver next, and it's going to be Bryce Ford Wheaton. And keep in mind, there were some other receivers in this draft that I liked, like Zay Flowers had a pretty decent combine. Jackson Smith, the hyphen, had a good combine. But with the situation the Seahawks find themselves in, I think it's more likely we spend a low pick on a receiver, not a high pick. And of the guys you could get with a low pick, I think Bryce Ford Wheaton really splashed onto the scene. This guy is in the DK Metcalf level of athleticism, not quite that good, but he's in the same area, same idea. 6'4", he's tall, 221 pounds. He's got some weight to him, pretty long arms, 33.5 inches. Ran his 40, sub 4.4. 10-yard split, not as good as Metcalf's. I think Metcalf was like 147 or something. So the acceleration isn't quite there, but the vertical jump, that sure is. This guy can go up and get it. Broad jump, 10 feet 9 inches. Had a much better 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle than Metcalf, or whatever that's worth, by the way. So this is one of those guys who didn't produce a lot in college for one reason or another, but the intangibles, the athleticism, it's there. Excuse me, not the intangibles, the tangibles are there. This guy is skilled. This guy can do things that other players cannot do. He's big, he's fast, he's explosive. Sign me up for that in the late rounds. Tight end, and again, I understand tight end right now is not really a need, but I do believe there's a real chance Noah Fant is moved on draft day or a little bit before it, and I want to give us an option if we do that. Obviously, there's Darnell Washington, but everyone was in love with him before the combine anyway. So I want to talk about Zach Kuntz here because he had an incredible combine, I think. He had probably the best combine of any tight end. And while I think Darnell Washington in the second round is understandable, I think far more likely is a guy like Kuntz in the later rounds, maybe the fourth round. Maybe we're to that point yet, but he's big, 6'7", 255 pounds, so this is not a small guy. This is not a Jacob Hollister, but he gave you a really good 40 time, 4.55, decent 10-yard split for a tight end, really nice explosive numbers for a tight end, 40-inch vert, 10-foot, 8-inch broad jump, good number of bench press reps, good 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle. Like, the guy was the full package athletically. So at a place like Old Dominion, there isn't a whole lot of attention, but this guy got some attention in this particular combine. And I got to say that while I don't know if tight end is going to be a need, if it is, it's going to be hard for me to choose between Darnell Washington in the second and Zach Kuntz in the fourth. Like, is the extra value of Darnell as a blocker worth the additional draft capital? I don't know. Again, none of this matters unless we trade Noah Fant, but it's worth talking about. Final guy that I want to dive into here, and this is maybe the most important one to get here. This is the guy who would probably cost a day 2 pick, Luke Whippler of Ohio State. Of the centers who competed at the Combine this year, none of them blew me away. In fact, one of them, at least one of them, maybe even a couple of them, disappointed me. Luke Whippler exceeded my expectations. And he didn't do anything crazy. It wasn't anything over the top, but he was good. He was athletic. He was productive in college as well. This is, one of the best centers in college last year. And you put those two things together, and I think it's good enough. It's not perfect, but no center in this draft class is. And if the Seahawks are going to spend their capital in this draft on a center, I think this is the guy. I think Whippler's the guy at this point. I would rather get Whippler in the third than John Michael Schmitz in the second at this point. Maybe not in the mid-second, but it's close. Luke Whippler, decent 40-yard dash. In this class, it was a really good 40-yard dash for a center, honestly. Not an overly great athlete, admittedly, but he did put up a ton of bench press reps. So I do have questions, of course, but he tested well. He bench pressed well. It's going to be good enough. It's not the greatest crop of centers, but I do believe Whippler separated himself as being clearly the second best center in this class. And the number one guy, John Michael Schmitz, is going to go way higher. He's probably going to go a good, I'd say at least 30 to 40 picks higher. You got to decide, is that worth it? So, let me know what you guys think. These are the 5 guys on offense that stand out to me from the combine. I'll be doing 5 from the defense soon. But go Hawks, and hopefully at least one of these guys ends up being a Seahawk on draft day. That would be pretty exciting to me because I called it. I called it right here, right now. These are guys whose stock is going to move up at least a little bit and guys who are going to be something in the NFL. See y'all later. Go Hawks.